Hey, welcome to The Heroes You Deserve. I'm Henry.
I'm Mike.
We've been gone for a while. We survived the Thanos snap.
Yes.
And we're back.
Only just.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were gone. Ashes. That's why we didn't get a chance to review the Avengers movie. So maybe we'll do a review of the DVD.
Maybe a retro review
Sure.
of the DVD and its features.
Sure.
You know, that seems like something you might. If you might enjoy that, go ahead and comment below, and we'll give it a shot.
Yeah, we're still around. So in the meantime, since there's a big gap between comic book movies and comic book shows, even because everything's during the summer, everything is going to premiere in September in a couple of weeks, actually. So what we've done is we've gone through our archives of our comic book collection, and I got comics for my collection. I said, Mike, I think you need to read this, and in return, Mike has done the same. He's still a novice collector,
A fledgling, only learning, dipping my toe into the indies, occasionally the big two. I have a working knowledge of what went down, but for the most part, I am still learning.
You're more indies and you're more recent, right?
Correct.
I'm more old school, 80s, 90s, a big chunk of.
Yes, Henry has an impressive collection, and that word does it no justice.
Yeah. I'm still in the middle of cataloging and bagging and boarding my collection, but
yes, he stopped being a savage and finally bought some bags and boards. And how is the task gone thus far, Henry?
Yeah. I'm about, 3,400 in so far, bagged and boarded, alphabetical.
It's 3,400 books.
Yeah, comics.
Oh dear.
So that means 17 long boxes. But in the process, this Mike needs to read this, and so that kind of spurred the idea. Mike needs to read these ideas, and I even found these old digest books.
Aren't those cool? Look at that. I mean, where would you find these even, Henry?
These were at Maverick Market and Circle K. I mean, this one.
Oh, convenience stores, you mean?
Yeah. 1982.
Jesus, I was 3.
Brave and the Bold, which features one of the original Suicide Squad, which is non-powered humans, which predates the superpowered Suicide Squad, which started with Deadshot and Blockbuster and whoever it is now. But I mean, this is the human Suicide Squad and Justice League. So I found my stack. I mean, this one is also from December 1982. Jesus. So that's how old is that?
82. Well, I'm old. So let me dial back. Let's see, 3 years. So that would be 36 years old.
Yeah. This comic book is 36 years old.
Jesus. Don't do that math, children.
So we exchanged some comics. We gave each other homework assignments.
Right. Henry's. I think the thesis behind this was, or what the exercise was meant to be, was Henry giving me some required reading, and then me lending Henry some of the newer things that I'd come across in my journey that maybe he had ignored or not paid attention to because, well, there's a lot of titles out there. And since I'm a bit of a weirdo, I kind of gravitated towards those lesser known but interesting books. Things that in previews world sounded like they might be a bet for me.
Right, and we got different tastes, but I have more of a collection since I collected in the 80s and 90s and the 2000s. So I have a lot of mainstream, but I've collected a little bit of everything over the years, from Power Pack to Punisher to Fantastic Four, Avengers. I mean, Marvel, Image, DC, Dark Horse. Just a couple of indies here and there scattered, but not as much. Valiant and Defiant. Boom Comics. I'm trying to think.
Oh yeah, it was you that actually turned me on to Irredeemable.
Yes, Irredeemable. So those are going to the comics you just want to sit down and read, but I just don't have time anymore. So I kind of stopped collecting around, I would say 6-7 years ago, which was right around the launch of the New 52 for DC. Actually, that's kind of when I stopped, and I don't know.
That's sort of where I picked up the baton and started collecting. So New 52 was my first foray into collecting sort of the first runs of any edition of books. And it was some serious artists and writers. So we got, Grant Morrison on Action Comics. We got Snyder and Capullo on Batman. This is, heavy hitters doing books like this. So I was all in. And some of them made the cut. I'm still collecting Batman, and Action Comics kind of won me over, then lost me. The new Constantine I wasn't a huge fan of, but I love the character, so I still give it a shot. Hellblazer, that is. And that's sort of where I'm at right now. Mostly still gravitating towards the indies, still finding obscure Avatar Press runs of Alan Moore books that are super weird. Not always everyone's bag, but certainly what I enjoy.
All right, so
without further ado, I guess let's get started.
Let's get started. I'm kind of anxious, and some of you might be familiar with this comic book because there's a TV show. So, Mike's homework assignment to me, he gave me the first year of iZombie. So, if you're not familiar, I mean, it's a current CW show, and it's way different from the comic book.
Significantly, yeah. Well, I mean, in overarching, like, mile-high theme, still essentially the same story. Let's,
So you gave me a year's worth, and I only read through number 7. So I just kind of wanted to show what I've read.
So a young woman finds herself a zombie. We won't go into why. But one of the side effects is that she can eat brains, much like the show, and see glimpses of the person who she's consumed, their life. And if they had a grievance, she's compelled to solve it.
So, well, I mean, I think we're obviously going to give spoilers because we're going to talk about the difference, I would say, between the show and the comic book.
Yeah, I think we can avoid some of like the major plot points. Well, considering that they diverge pretty heavily.
And plus, I mean, this show has been out about 4 years. So, I mean,
we're only about to start, I think, in next year, the very last season of the show.
Correct.
So they are wrapping the story. It was a finite set of scripts that the story that they were going to tell is about to end. So
it's written by Chris Roberson and art by Michael Allred, which you might be more familiar with his artwork because of Mad Men comics.
Oh, yeah. That's it. I
mean, and he did X-Force for a while there, too.
Oh, yeah. And Silver Surfer recently.
Yes, absolutely. And so, which one? Do you want to explain the comic or do you want to explain the show? And I'll take the opposite.
You know what? I'd like to hear your take on the book. I mean, I've already read the book.
Yes.
I have my opinions on it, but it was your first foray. So I would like to, and we haven't spoken about this since we traded books. So I'm curious to hear what Henry would have to say about it.
In my years of collecting, I mean, sometimes, and that's how comics get you, because I don't like the fact that they're always reissuing X-Men #1, Justice League #1, Fantastic Four #1, but they do it for a reason because they want to lure new people in by the allure of #1 and hopefully catch new readers thinking, I don't want to worry about the long history of what happened before. This is a good starting point, jumping on point. But by doing so, you kind of disregard all the other #1s that happened before. I think JLA had 2 #1s in the same year, I think, which...
little ridiculous. I think everyone would agree.
And there's too many X-Men #1s. So, but again, over the years, I've collected #1s just to see what it is. I mean, because they're just barely launching them, and again, that's how they get you.
Yeah, it's like watching a pilot.
Right, it's just like watching a pilot.
Only you pay $3.
Right. So I bought a #1, and if it intrigued me, I would continue buying, and if not, so I think I remember buying iZombie when it came out and didn't catch my attention, so I probably maybe bought issue 2, 3 at the most, and I stopped. So I read 1 through 7 as a homework assignment dictated, and it is, like Mike said, a girl is a zombie, and she needs to eat brains to continue living, and when she eats brains, she gets flashbacks and memories of that person. But she's got an entourage, her friends. The whole series is very unique. Her guy friend is a Wur Terrier. Who's not a werewolf. He transforms into a Wur Terrier.
It's super cute.
And a ghost who is like a 1950s, 60s
kind of teeny bopper.
Teeny bopper icon, right?
Sure.
And there's vampires in there, and it just kind of seems all thrown in there. It kind of seems like, I don't know. And the fact that the comic booky, I don't know what a better word, the comic booky artwork of Michael Allred just, I think, throws me off a little bit.
Oh, well, it's very pop art.
It is.
It's very pop art.
Pop art.
Which I happen to adore.
Sure.
It hits me in all the right spots. I've always loved. I mean, I think this was maybe my second introduction to his work. I hadn't quite seen Silver Surfer because it only just came out, obviously.
Right.
But I knew right away. They're like, "Ooh, that book's for me." His work and probably Super Joe Eisma's in the current Archie series. Very, very similar. I mean, obviously divergent. They're different, but you can tell that there's a bit of I don't know who's influencing who, or if they both have a common influence. And if somebody knows, please tell us in the comments. But that style of artwork, that heavy line work with very little in the way of shading, really relying heavily on the colorist for depth and detail, that sort of stuff is just hitting all the right spots for me. But again, it's not going to be your Jim Lee work with super detailed line work and a lot of detailed paid to shading and wrinkles and just.
But as Jim Lee has his fans, Michael Allred has his fans.
Loyal fans.
Right.
I mean, I follow the dude on Twitter, and you guys really should too. I mean, he's constantly pushing his work, and it's all awesome. So if you want to see something cool like that every day, and he posts just about every day, then give him a follow, because you're gonna be seeing a lot of works in progress and then throwbacks to the old characters, commissions and things like that. The guy goes to cons all the time.
Right. So I think the combination of the pop art and just the whole weirdness of the situation, the vampires, and I think there's an invisible man and a reincarnated thing. There was just like a soup. Let's just see what else can go in the soup.
So how did you like Chris Roberson's world building there?
It was I don't know, that clash. I mean, maybe if, I don't know, would I like this more if Jim Lee drew it and it was kind of little too out there for me. Like if maybe Jim Lee drew it and maybe it was just a werewolf, not a war terrier. What if it was just a regular ghost and not a 1960s pop icon? And what if it was just a regular invisible man without being a reincarnated Egyptian person?
Right.
There was a lot of added invisible man, but let's do this. It just seemed a little too much for me. So I guess that's why I didn't continue connecting it. And again, all that weirdness is nowhere really on the TV show.
There's that quirk that it's missing. There's a charm that the comic has that the show really doesn't. It's a shame. But the show does have its own sort of very modern pop culture weirdness too. Right? There's a lot of inside baseball, a lot of really meta jokes. They're not afraid to poke fun at themselves.
Yeah.
But you're not going to see a lot of the supernatural elements. It is very grounded. It's very procedural crime drama wrapped around the comic book premise.
Like I said before we taped, CSI with zombies.
A little earlier we did have a Mile High talk about just our initial impressions and go over again what it was. CSI meets
CSI with zombies.
Yeah, or Scooby-Doo.
Right. And each season of the show practically reinvents itself.
That is true. It went from being just sort of the mystery of the week, and I guess at its core never quite broke that formula.
Right, and we've touched on it. So now I've explained the comic, explained the show, and how it's way different than the.
Okay,
the
well,
comic.
we've already kind of prefaced that with
bit.
the initial difference in that.
Solving crimes.
There's the supernatural element is kind of gone entirely.
Right.
They just scrubbed it. The zombie virus is the result of an experiment gone wrong in the TV show, and again we lose the as you described, the need for sustenance still remains. So she still has to eat. she happens to work in a crime lab, so there's that natural vehicle for the show's motivation. So she eats, they work in a police station, they solve crimes, and off they go. That is, to this day, still the formula. But each time the show has started a new season, we've kind of cranked it up a bit. So we started off with just, as we described, a procedural crime drama with a zombie.
Right.
With a lot of witty writing, by the way. I think that's Rob Thomas.
Witty banter, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of witty banter, a lot of
Rob
quick
Thomas.
quips. It's fun. That's Gilmore Girls?
Yeah, I think so.
That's right. Then it morphed into sort of a zombie survival type story.
At first, she was the only zombie, and then the zombies became more widespread.
That escalated. There's a whole crime industry around being a zombie and acquiring brains. There's a lot of meat to the TV show that sadly was lacking in the book. Now, the book has its own tone, obviously, but if a gun to my head, which one do I like better? Ooh, that's rough. I enjoy the artwork a good deal. I love the way Chris Robeson built this crazy supernatural world, but the show's got some serious legs, and the fact that it's going to wrap its story up in a very finite way also kind of intrigues me. I always like when a show has a set beginning and end, because I know I'm going to consume a single narrative. It's not going to... There's not that worry of it going super weird later down the line, or having the writers get kind of lazy, falling on old crutches.
Right, because as a comic, I mean, it has the word terrier, the ghosts, the vampires, the reincarnated. The only supernatural thing about this show is just that she's a zombie.
Right.
That's as supernatural as it gets.
And they even grounded that.
Right. They grounded on a virus or a drug or something that went wrong. So they kind of founded it on science somewhat.
Yes.
I guess, possibly.
I mean, insofar as, as any kind of, zombie outbreak ever is.
Yeah, so and it's available on CW app and the website, so you have time to catch up on it now. So once the final season starts, you can start fresh and be caught up.
If you were at all interested in anything that sounds remotely like that, be it the comic or the show, give it a shot. I mean, it's not going to cost you anything. I mean, the barrier to entry for the book is pretty low. I think you can get the trade paperbacks fairly cheap. We'll put links in the description where you can find these digitally and physically. And also, I mean, talk to your local comic book shop guy. He might be able to order you the trade paperbacks. That's, a good thing to do. Keep them in business. Keep you coming back. Maybe, make some magic happen.
Yeah. So that was the homework assignment. And so I think I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to happen.
Right? I mean, that's part of what we're finding out here.
Not every book's for everybody.
Sure. There's a comic book for every person, but not every person is for every comic.
Correct.
So I wasn't a fan of the pop art or the everything, But I like the show. I enjoy the show. I watched the first 3 seasons, and I'm just kind of caught behind because there's just a lot of TV to watch.
A lot of content out in the world. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, so I want to... It's good. I like the CSI, solve a crime, but every season they change the whole universe of what it operates in. And I think the last season, I mean, spoiler alert or not, I don't know how far we want to go, but I mean, it changes the whole aspect of how much the world knows about zombies. Right?
And the stakes are raised significantly in this last season.
Right.
I mean, as you'd expect them to be. And we'd be remiss if we didn't compliment Rose McIver's work.
Right. Yes.
She alters her personality in every episode.
Yes, that's true. Because she takes the book. She gets memories and flashbacks, but in the show, she takes on quirks, personalities, mannerisms, habits. So if she eats a brain of a guitar player, she'll learn to play guitar. If she eats a brain of a chef, she'll want to cook. I mean, she takes on aspects. So each week, she takes on that character to solve the crime of who killed her.
Yeah, and it's funny. Sometimes it's beneficial. Like she'll learn a skill that's suddenly super helpful,
right?
Or she gets this personality quirk that's really obnoxious and is harming everyone around her.
But usually the quirk or whatever trait she picks up contributes to the the finale of the episode. It helps them solve the crime.
It's always involved in the resolution.
Right.
If not for this person's personality infecting her, she wouldn't have gotten as close or outright solved what the crime was for that week.
Right. I mean, she's eating brains of like an S&M person and I think a baseball player and a little bit of everything and somehow
conspiracy theorist. I mean, there's some really, really funny episodes.
But it all ties in at the very end, and it helps her solve the case. And in the show, she's got a boyfriend, zombie, not zombie, and she works with another morgue, and she works with the police, which, again, police are hardly even mentioned in the comic.
Yeah, a lot of that meat's missing.
Right.
I mean, while I definitely enjoyed the supernatural angle, again, gun to my head, I think I prefer the show a little better.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, these guys are getting paid either way, so I mean, that's good for you.
Is the comic series still going on, or did it already end as well?
I believe it has ended.
Okay, cool.
I don't believe it's an ongoing anymore. But if I'm wrong, please correct me.
Yeah. So that was your homework assignment to me. What did I give you?
So Henry, as I stated before, is giving me required reading. What that entailed in this case was something that I seriously enjoyed. So.
But you didn't read them, but you just retained the memory from the first reading.
I'd actually read this already, and that it ended up in my pile again was not at all a problem. This, I agree, is in fact required reading. And Henry gave me Identity Crisis. I was beside myself. I've never actually held these physical copies. I'd only ever had trade paperback. These covers, Michael Turner covers. I mean, look at that. Let me get the glare out of here. Would you just look at that? I'm sorry. Let me talk into the mic. That's gorgeous.
Yeah,
that's gorgeous. Interiors by Rags Morales. Brian Meltzer's brilliant story.
I think this got Brad Meltzer into the whole writing for comics. I think this is his first series and kind of started the whole Brad Meltzer writing career for comics.
This is amazing work.
Because he's a novelist, and this is, I think, his first comic series.
So, I don't want to spoil this book. There's going to be some of you out there that have certainly read this because
this is at least 10 years old.
Yes. So by now, certainly some of you have read it. But if you're a younger viewer, or if you're just now getting into comics, you might not have touched on this. So I'm going to give you a very, very basic summary of what this story is. It is a mystery. It is a story of loss and of betrayal. There is of finding out monstrous things about people that you trust, about finding out monstrous things about people that you've let close to you.
I think you can say the first death because that kicks off the whole series.
Right. So we lose Ralph Dimby's wife, Sue.
Right.
After kind of dealing with some minor characters, he comes home to find his wife dead with burn marks. There is someone responsible for this, and they're sure they know who it was.
We went to perfect, and so those Ralph Dibny might sound familiar because he was on the recent season of Flash, which is Elongated Man, which is kind of another reason why I brought this to mind because I know his wife had gotten to like Ralph Dibny.
And he's played really well in the show. The character is
slightly different,
sure. But pretty close.
But,
I mean, it's
different.
I guess maybe in like an abstract way.
But when I collected in the 80s, Barry Allen and Ralph Dibny were the best friends, and they solved crime together. I grew up more with Barry Allen than I did with Wally West, and I liked the duo of Flash and Elongated Man. So this hit me because it was Ralph, and Ralph is such a likable character. I mean, he was part of Justice League and Justice League Europe,
and the stakes are immediately like somber. Like there's this guy who's always been just good to everyone, and now he's had what he loves taken away from him. And that plot point, while on its surface seems kind of an old trope, you'd say they fridged his wife, but the story takes a turn. It takes takes a bad turn. And it's not in for those of you who have finished it, who have read this before. It's not the obvious reveal at the end.
Right.
It's
interesting because like when there's a cop shooting or killing, cops take it personal. Like we're gonna go do justice and serve and protect our brother or sister justice. And it's a very similar instance here because Ralph Dibny's wife, and she was practically an honorary Justice League member anyway.
Right. So
And
one of their
their own got killed. So they
done.
took it hard. I mean, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, they took it hard because I mean, she was a teammate.
They went in hard on the usual suspects too.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, so hard that losses were had on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want.
I
want to give some away. I mean, again, it's been years later. I mean, how can we need to talk about this and not talk about?
I'm considering our new viewers here, and not new viewers. And if you are new here, thank you. And if you've been with us all along, thanks for sticking with us. And hello again. But I don't feel right spoiling this book because of what it what it meant inside of the DC universe. This really shook the DC universe. It led into
it changed a lot of things.
Crisis. It changed Batman. It changed the Flash. It certainly changed Elongated Man. Gosh, I can't say more. There was major fallout for nearly every character.
Because it always seems like every big summer event, the comic book publishers always say this is a comic-changing event that's going to affect years on out. And sometimes it never really does.
They don't deliver.
It doesn't deliver. This one did, for sure.
Yeah, this was felt for a long time. And this is the way to do it. I mean, this is real. As in, to use a phrase I used earlier, world building. The stakes were real. Every page was painful to get to. It was like, oh God, what is going to happen? Who did this? And now this book's done. I have to wait for the next one. I didn't. I read the trade, but I mean, I can't imagine for you having to pick these up weekly. Back in what is this, 2004?
Probably.
I can't imagine going month to month waiting for this next issue to come out.
Right, and then from what of it stirred up, I mean, Justice League was really affected by the team as a core was really affected by this, by the
fallout was organic too.
Right.
The way it led into Infinite Crisis made sense. You saw why this happened. It wasn't. This was preface, but it also was very much its own story. It's hard not to care about this book if you at all enjoyed Infinite Crisis. This one informs the other. And that's, I think, as a consumer of this medium, all we can ask for is that the continuity remain intact. That if I'm investing in this story, that it's going to have some sort of impact later down the line, that it's not going to be reset because it's become stale or unpopular. It's okay to just, reel things in, call in a pinch hitter, get him to straighten the story out, and then put your book on rails for months, maybe years to come.
And it called on previous continuity for sure.
Oh yeah, in major ways, and
but you don't need to be familiar with
timelines too.
Yes, it does, and when you were older reader in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, sometimes you don't really analyze the story the way it should be. You know?
No.
And now this one kind of followed up like
callbacks.
The callbacks, like this comic that you read, this actually had repercussions that you don't realize.
Yeah, there's story back there that you didn't know even existed.
Right. I mean,
and now there's lore. This lore.
And we're here talking about super vague stuff. I mean, I kind of want to tell them, and I kind of don't.
I'm still on the side of not. So I mean, I tell you what, if you guys are super interested in us going deep into Identity Crisis and maybe as a lead-in to Infinite Crisis, I think maybe that would deserve its own episode. If you're at all interested in that, hit us up in the comments, hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know that you're interested in that because I think it would deserve its own episode.
Sure. And it's available on trade paperback for sure. But
yeah, pick it up on trade paperback, digital.
I got these when these first came out. Gorgeous art by Michael Turner. Rest in peace. He passed away. But the interior is just as good. But I think each cover is practically a poster in itself.
Look at that.
But he did, I just, there are certain covers you don't want to show just because.
Yeah, that's.
Like this one, you don't want to show it.
That one
This
is
one's good.
fairly vague. That one.
Yeah. So that was my homework. So what did you think? You read it before already.
It holds up. This is the kind of book, like, if you remember reading it, maybe you lost track of your book, or you're like Henry and you have them, bagged and boarded, and you're not super comfortable handling them for obvious reasons. Consider picking up the trade. Read it again. I promise you, you're not going to be sorry you're rereading this content. It's one of my favorite stories in the DC universe. One that had real stakes. One that was just heart-wrenching. I'd be happy to read it again even today. I wouldn't count that as an afternoon poorly spent.
I think some people highlight this as a point in DC where DC kind of went a little bit darker.
That's fair.
Right?
That's absolutely fair.
I think since Sue and other people were killed off here, I think that just set a precedent, and other people were killed in later years. But I think just this series got the ball rolling, I think.
Yeah, made the stakes high.
Yeah,
made you realize that. I think it was taking our temperature as consumers.
Yeah.
Like, are we going to like this? Is this the kind of story that we can take? Because, it is dark. It is sad. And I could see some people getting, like, really put off by the way the story went and how it made certain people look on some of the consequences. But we all responded the way I think that Brad Meltzer would have enjoyed us, intended for us to take it, which is, this is a real story. It's gritty, and it harkens back to the name of the vendor. It's Detective Comics.
Yeah,
the whole thing's a whodunit.
Yes, it is.
From start to finish, it's a whodunit. You want to know.
You want to know who the killer is.
Happened.
Yeah, it is, and the one that's most effective was Ralph Dibny.
No, obviously,
obviously, and he's likable, funny guy in the comics, which is different. It's different at the core from his character on Flash, because on the Flash show he's kind of like a crooked cop trying to redeem himself, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's a redemption story.
And by no means is Ralph Dibny ever a corrupted cop. He was always a likable guy. Him and Barry Allen got together easy. So, yes. I mean, if you kind of like the TV character, I think you will really enjoy the Ralph Dibny, the comic book person.
100% yes. Yeah, it's it. One informs the other at a basic level, but they're very much different. So if you enjoyed watching Ralph Dibny in Flash, read one of his lowest points, because this certainly is that, and it's important.
In fact, this one here, this talks about 4 stories of how Red Tornado, Elongated Man, Zatanna, and Black Canary first joined the Justice League back in the 80s. And this one has how Ralph Dibny joined Justice League.
Yeah, well, gosh, I still can't believe you had those. And considering how old they are, the shape that they're in.
Well, they're not in near mint condition. I mean...
Even so, I mean, I didn't feel... I don't know, something about the newsprint just holds up.
It holds up?
Yeah, it just... And the smell.
I have a whole shoebox full of these ones.
Jesus.
And the smell, right?
I think we'll start bringing these on. Henry, do you mind bringing a couple just to show these guys? Maybe next time we do one of these?
Yeah. I want to read them again.
I don't blame you.
All right, so what else we got here on the table?
So Henry gave me some more homework.
Yeah.
So knowing that I like weird stuff,
yes,
Henry found something, a gem, he says, from the 90s. I don't know what to make of this, Henry. This is This is what I was given.
I'm sure a lot of you have never heard of this.
This
is so obscure.
I don't know what I'm getting into here.
The hero you deserve, really.
But I'm excited. So it's a what is this? A 6-issue series.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
He gave me some books. This is the entire run of Hero. Some I don't know if any of these spoilers, any of these covers spoilery, Henry.
No.
Okay, so I mean we got some good stuff here. Let me just cycle through these. If I can keep the glare off the camera. Check these out. I mean, that's awesome. Let me get my fingers
What year
out of
did we say it was from?
This was 1990.
Yeah.
Look at that. I was 11.
Thanks. Me too.
No, 1990. Yeah, I guess I was. How about that? Yeesh.
They're still in good condition too.
Yeah. Got the the metal font. I don't know what you call this this font here, but harkens to metal. I guess little.
Yeah, I get you.
Look at that.
So
I guess we don't see these kind of fantasy books from the major publishers anymore, which is a shame. I mean, is that how you describe this? I guess I'm going in. I mean, it's there in the tagline, fantasy-filled first issue.
It is.
So
it is fantasy. It's very 80s, 90s feel to it for sure. So it's the writing is not solid.
So I got that to look forward to. I'm very excited. I do have an obscene stack of books that I've recently purchased that I have not touched, but this since it's homework and it's for you, I'm gonna give it a shot and let you know what I think.
Because like sometimes whether it's DC and Marvel, sometimes they'll have a limited series that they release of a character, and maybe years later it'll appear in the actual universe. It'll interact with Spider-Man or Wolverine. I can think of. There was a 12-issue series called The Weird that came out in DC. This was in the 80s. And he interacted with Superman back then, and he kind of disappeared off of the face of the earth. And it wasn't until recently in like Infinity Crisis or Journey into Mystery, maybe 5-6 years ago, he popped up again with Adam Strange, and when he was traveling around in space. Yeah, I don't know. I know you don't know who the Weird is.
I'm intrigued though.
But it was a limited series. A weird guy gets powers through a comic, kind of, sort of, and I know it's weird describing the Weird, but yeah. So, but this one was so obscure. I don't think this character has ever popped up. One and done. So, I just thought let's just try it. I'm excited because it's all about giving Mike obscure stuff. I mean, some stuff, weird stuff that he might like, and just stuff that.
And along with some classic stories that, since I haven't been collecting as long as Henry has, I just haven't read.
Yeah, so just something. I don't think that's ever collected in trade paperback. So just, and it's inked by Whilce Portacio, which he went on to draw X-Men. He went on to draw Wetworks for Image when Image started, with Savage Dragon and Spawn. Wetworks was one of the first 7. Whilce was one of the 7 creators that launched Image.
Jeez.
So he was barely inking back then. So that shows you how old it is.
Beautiful line work. I mean, did you do the covers as well? Do we know?
No. It was...
Purcell.
Yeah, Purcell. Steve Purcell. It was written by Dave Michelin. Some of his titles don't come to mind, but he was a very prolific Marvel writer back in the day, in the 80s for sure. So cool. And you have something for me or no? Or you just want to shout out?
Give some shout outs to some guys that I've been following on Twitter that have projects that are, I think, worth a look, a serious look. And we'll start off, and I only have this Patreon variant, so I'll have to just show that work off by Miss Sashi. So this is from the team at Rags: Brian Ball, Trent Luther, Luigi. I'm gonna ruin your last name, so I'm just not even gonna make the attempt. I'm sorry. It'll all be linked in the description. Check these guys out. I'll put links to their Twitter on and their Patreon. It's a serious book. They got picked up by Antarctic Press. And they'll be released, I think, this week. If you're watching this on Tuesday, it'll be out tomorrow. So check your local shop and see if it's there. You know what? I'm going to let you find out. And we'll revisit this and do a proper review once the official release is out. because I don't want to spoil anything. I think it's the artwork and the story speaks for itself. Y'all should check it out. And then I also have some work from a fella I follow on Twitter named Adam Blackhat. Him and Val Sinai, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Val, have been working on a webcomic called Starfall for some time, and I burned through the entirety of the webcomic. They just got to a printer and released their first set. They are on, I'm going to forget the name of the website. The link will be in the description, but they are available digitally for their first issue. Another great story that I won't spoil at all. I'll just say that it is a huge world, and the story's fun and weird and very, very Mike, I think you'll come to understand.
Yeah? You've gotten a lot more indie, though, right? Your taste tend to favor more indie stuff? Or?
I like the weird. I like the odd stories. I like the misfit toys. Artists are weird people. And the weirdest of them write the best stuff. They draw the craziest stuff.
Yeah, we were just talking about Grant Morrison.
You watch some of the things that Jason Burrows has drawn, and you don't know how he even closes his eyes at night.
Alan Moore and Grant Morrison, I think, are some of the weird guys. But they do good stuff. Even with the mainstream, they do good stuff.
Yeah, you give them anything, they're just going to shit out gold. I don't know how they do it, pardon my language.
Yeah. So I think that's it, right?
Yes, we have another one of these cooking soon. And as you know, Henry gave me some books. I got some weird stuff for him, including some work by one of my favorite artists, that we won't spoil. Actually, I just tell you.
Michael Allred.
No, but yes, he is one of my favorite artists. No, we'll give him some Sean Gordon Murphy. I'm going to give Henry the first few issues of Joe the Barbarian for him to touch on, and then we'll touch back onto how
I think I lent that to you. I have those.
Oh, you do have them?
I do have
Well,
them.
shit, here we are. Look at that.
I just need to go through my archives.
Okay, so he'll touch on that. I do actually have some of his other work. I have his work on Constantine or Hellblazer.
If there's any comics that you think we should read, see what you think. Something like Mike or something like Henry.
Yeah, if you have some recommendations for required reading for me and something weird as shit for Henry.
Yeah. Well, something mainstream for Mike, something weird for me. If there's something that you're currently reading, or that you've liked and you want to recommend and you want us to highlight on our show.
If you're an artist and you've got a book out.
Sure, that too.
That you want us to check out, we'll go and buy it and just read it. I mean, we like books. You're writing books. Let's make some magic happen.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess that's it. We got some homework, and we're going to be reading some more of these, and I'm going to dig out some more digests. So that's another episode of the Heroes You Deserve. It's from the archives. I'm Henry.
I'm Mike.
See you next time.
Bye, guys.